Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Elbow, I want to touch on the training aspect of pilots in general, of aircraft certified by the FAA, and then also about the specific MAX 8 aircraft. Would it be a true statement to say that U.S. pilots properly trained would know how to respond to an uncommanded nose-down pitch rate on an aircraft with an automated stabilizer system? I'll give you an example. I flew the Black Hawk.
Yes, ma'am.
It went through this and it went through a real problem at the beginning of its development. And to this day, I know the procedure for uncommanded nose-down rate, right? Mm-hmm. So I know it by heart. I will always know it until the day I die. Is that something that most pilots would be able to basically say what those steps are, those memory items, if they're properly trained under U.S. system?
Yes, Senator Duckworth, that our American U.S. trained pilots on large commercial aircraft know that procedure. Mm-hmm. And if I might,
yes,
I wanted to amplify what we were doing prior to the grounding on Wednesday. One of the things I was doing, is talking to the heads of all of the pilot groups that flew the MAX and asking, did they have reservations about the MAX? This is in addition to data we got from over 50,000 MAX flights in North America, Canada, and the US. And in those data reports, and those are data reports that coming right off the airplane, there was not a single case in North America of an MCAS malfunction or what we found happen in line air. But that wasn't enough. I called and talked to the presidents of SWAPA, the Southwest Airline Pilots Organization, ALPA, over 53,000 pilots, and APA, the American Pilots Group, and asked them, what is your experience flying the MAX? What are your pilots saying? And they said, to a person, to a group, we are absolutely confident in the safety of this aircraft and our pilots' level of training in flying it. If I hadn't had that information, the data and the affidavits from those unions or from those pilot groups, I would not have been able, that's part of the data package I had to wait for the data from the accidents to justify a grounding.
Let me then ask you about, so we talked a bit about just responding to an uncommanded nose-down attitude. That aside, there's another procedure. This is my experience as a Black Hawk pilot. We have the stabilizer that would slew down, killed a bunch of pilots, hurt a bunch of people. But the automated control system, the basic procedure is reset. If it doesn't reset, turn it off, manual control. Slew to 0 if you're above 40 knots indicated airspeed, flew down if you're below. I know nothing you ever flew ever went as slow as 40 knots indicated airspeed as I did, as slow and low pilots. The question I have for you is, while the MCAS is not specifically referenced in the aircraft manual for the MAX 8, the procedure to shut off stabilizer trim switches are in the manual as a response to this. Is that correct? And this is something that American pilots would be trained on?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this something that FAA, through ICAO, would ensure that other pilots in other countries would also be trained on?
When we interact at ICAO, it is usually not to the specificity of a fleet type, but we do use our influence at ICAO, and our influence at the International Civil Aviation Organization is substantial, and we use it at any opportunity we get to raise the safety level around the world. In fact, we don't have the final reports on either of these accidents, but I have already set in motion at the FAA activities to go to the assembly, and as you know, I'm sure ICAO meets every 3 years, and we're already examining what we bring to the assembly this year, our country, our pilots, to help raise the safety bar, which is, as you know, we're responsible for aviation safety in the United States, but it's a globe, there are no boundaries, there's no borders, it's a global endeavor. We care deeply how other countries, and we have over 100 technical assistance agreements around the world. We have 20 bilateral aviation safety agreements with 47 countries. We're very, very passionate, not just about safety in the U.S., but that every country raises their safety bar.
So are you saying that we need to look at strengthening the International Aviation Safety Assessment Program, and do you plan on doing that in the next ICAO meeting?
The International Aviation Safety Assessment Program, I think, is sound. It's very good, the IASA that we do with countries around the world. Because what we do is we evaluate the Civil Aviation Authority. And a healthy Civil Aviation Authority tells you that that country has a good culture for everything, airports, pilots, airlines. But by working to help raise the standards overall, then when we do an IASA in a country and we do a rating, we'll be rating against higher standards. And I think that's appropriate and it's well worth our attention.
Thank you. I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.